Okay, I think we are still waiting for more people to enter. Yes. Okay, I think we can start now, John. Over.
Angie, if we could do 2 more minutes for people to get in.
Oh yeah, sure.
Good morning, good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to our webinar, where we will be talking about monitoring the energy finance trends to demand for a community-led and just energy transition. Welcome to this webinar, where we want to understand the energy investment in Africa. And particularly, we are exploring the energy trends in the African continent, which are supported by the African Development Bank investment patterns in the energy projects, and how us as the African civil society organizations are actively working to address the energy challenges and promote sustainable solutions. International Accountability Project, together with the African Coalition on Corporate Accountability, is organizing this webinar following work that has been around ensuring that we are able to track the energy financing in the Africa region. We welcome all of you who have chosen to be a part of this meeting, and we are glad to have you. I noticed that we have many people that have joined us online. We welcome you, and we are happy that you have joined this particular meeting. We may not get into everyone introducing themselves, but we request kindly that you write your name in the chat box and that you're able to also write the institution that you're coming from. I'll also love to let you know that we have French interpretation. So please, if you're a French speaker, you can go ahead and seek to have the interpretation in the interpretation box. If you are for English, please click onto English. And if you're for French, please click onto French. If you remain in the general room, you're going to be hearing both languages. So please, please take note and access the interpretation as and when. We also are going to be having 3 presentations. We are going to be keen on time because we need you to also participate in these discussions. So we're going to have 3 presentations. One presentation is coming in from Alejandro from IAP. He's going to be talking about the energy finance tracker and where it's going to delve into monitoring energy finance trends to demand for community-led and just energy transition. We'll also have Lydia, who's going to be from Malawi, CHHR. She's going to be talking to us about the community-led response on Salima solar project, which will also have a binding on the alternatives, in the energy alternatives that we are talking about in the Africa region, and also talking about financing for these alternatives and the challenges that communities are facing with this financing. We'll also have a presentation from Panelists, Lumière Synergie, Développement from Senegal, and Fatoumata will be talking to us about the gaps that exist in the electrification of the country, but also the policies of these financials affecting these developments that are happening. So welcome everybody to this meeting. We're glad to have you. I'll call upon my colleague Alejandro to open up with an understanding of this energy finance tracker. Thank you.
Thank you, John, and welcome everyone. I'm glad to see many participants here today. And yeah, first of all, I would like to thank IAP's team who contributed to this, developing these tools, and also our partners in the Africa region who helped distributing it and supporting us in making sure that these tools reach the people who need the most. I will now try to share my screen. I hope it works. Yeah, okay. So yeah, as John said, at IAP we developed this tool that's called the Energy Finance Tracker, and today we'll be talking about. I will try to show possible ways to use it with a special focus on the Africa region, and but first broadly about the tracker. We developed this tool to raise awareness about how MDBs are currently investing in the energy sector, that it's a sector that is acquiring more and more importance nowadays with the topic of the energy transition and energy security, access to energy. And we want to support partners and civil society organizations to develop their advocacy and research on specific projects that might be problematic for communities on the ground or for the environment. And yeah, thanks to this report, we also, to the tool Energy Fair and Structure, we would like also to trigger some actions towards promoting more sustainable practices and investments in the energy sector. And yeah, last but not least, highlight how MDBs can improve their practices, their strategies and policies in the sector, so as to make sure that transition to cleaner, greener energy systems is just, fair, and respects communities' rights. So yeah, we developed this tracker. It was a long work of collecting data thanks to the early warning system, the tool from International Accountability Project, where we collect development projects invested in by 16 development banks. And in the energy finance structure, thanks to this work, we identified during 2 years 934 projects. The screenshot is from an earlier version of the tracker. But yeah, we tracked projects from the 1st of January 2022 until the 1st of January 2024. And as you can partly see in the screenshot in the slide, you can select different sub-sectors, such as solar, wind, transmission infrastructure, oil and gas. And you can select the data depending on the region, on the country of your interest. You can also check the risk category assigned by the bank, as well as seeing what banks invest the most and what banks invest the least in the energy sector. And yeah, you can also check whether financing has been given to the private sector or to the public sector, whether financing has been given to financial intermediaries or directly to agencies or companies. So there are many different ways you can use this tracker to understand more about the projects you're interested in. And importantly, like, this tracker will be updated every 3 months. So soon we will update it for the first time. So stay tuned. In the next week or so, we'll try to update it with the new projects invested in by the banks in 2024. Now about the African continent, I collected some quick facts. In the sub-Saharan Africa and the MENA region, there have been in 2 years 214 projects invested in for a total amount of 24.65 billion, which is quite a lot. And here you can see the countries that were that received the most financing. Egypt is at the top with 2.52 billion and 28 projects. I will talk about this about the specific country later. And yeah, the number of projects doesn't always match the amount of the investments, because sometimes banks, as you may know, they support they provide technical assistance or advisory services that are usually in lower amounts. So yeah, you can see the countries where banks invested the most, but also the countries where banks invested the least. So yeah, in the green square, there are the countries where banks invested the least. For instance, in Zimbabwe, in the Central African Republic, in Libya, in Lesotho, there was only one project in each of these countries, and the total overall amount in these countries was only 11.5 million. that compared to the 2.52 billions in Egypt sounds almost ridiculous. And yeah, the main multilateral development banks active in the sub-Saharan Africa region are the World Bank, the African Development Bank, the AFC, and the DFC. And again, as you can see, the number of projects doesn't always reflect the amount of investment, because they are, for instance, the United States Development Finance Corporation invested 4.3 billion, but had less projects than the African Development Bank. That might be because the African Development Bank mostly, well, not mostly, but it invests a lot in technical assistances and yeah. Going on, some more quick facts are that in the sub-Saharan Africa region, most investments went to the public sector and not to the private sector, which is a counter trend compared to the global investment from MDBs. For instance, in the MENA region, Middle East and North Africa, 80% of investments went to the private sector and just 20% to the public sector. So the sub-Saharan Africa is experiencing a counter trend when it comes to the sector, whether it's public or private. Between the sub-Saharan Africa region and the MENA region, there are 38 projects that were assigned risk category A. That means the highest risk, and that's, I think, a relevant information to be aware of. And the main subsectors were solar, that is in line with the global trend. The solar subsector received the most investments by development banks in the 2 years that we tracked. And energy access is relevantly another subsector that received considerable investments. And yeah, transmission, hydropower, oil and gas. When we say that fund equity and small and medium enterprises, that's where mostly financial intermediaries were involved, and we couldn't really identify the sub-projects that were being financed. As you know, the investments in financial intermediaries are less transparent, which is also an issue in the current development finance world. Going on, I collected a few actors, especially in two subsectors that are receiving increasing attention, luckily, but they are still very problematic, and that is the transition minerals subsector and the carbon markets, which are creating many problems among communities. And here you can see in the tracker, in the energy finance tracker, there were only 2 transition mineral projects in Africa, but I would expect to see more in the near future. And one was in Uganda and one in Egypt. There were 2 major actors in the carbon credits market. These are the Mirova Gigaton Fund and the West Africa Blue Carbon. And overall, in the Africa region, many companies that received financing from MDBs are mega groups from the global north. And that, I think, creates another issue, because it's not only harmful projects are located in the Africa region, but also those who benefit from these projects and the resources of the continent are global north companies. Apart from all these issues, we also noticed some possible better trends, which I will talk more about in a while. But yeah, as you can see in the slide, we noticed that there were a large part of investments was also given to increasing energy access through small-scale systems and mesh grids, solars, and small-scale hydropower, for instance, and so on. So that's a possible better trend that we would like to see more from MDBs. Now, as I anticipated, Egypt seems to be the next energy hub of the MENA region. There are 27 out of 53 projects. 27 out of 53 projects are located in Egypt, and most of these are large-scale systems, large-scale plants, both wind, solar, and also hydrogen facilities. And the actors, as you can see in the list, are companies from the global north. Scatec, for instance, is a very important player in the energy sector nowadays, and it's a huge company. And yeah, that might also be because of new European policy of finding alternative sources to the Russian oil after the crisis in Ukraine. So as you may know, they are trying to focus on the African continent. And just a few days ago, I read that Egypt and the European Commission, the European Union, signed an agreement for about 7 billion of investments in the country, and that might lead to increased investments also from MDBs in large-scale infrastructure that might as well impact communities and, of course, environment in the country and globally. Yeah, last but not least, an actor that you can see in the slide is Fertiglobe. Fertiglobe is owned by ADNOC, that is the Abu Dhabi National Oil Company, a company that got big attention last year during the conference of Paris on climate change, because the chairman of the company was also chairing the conference, which is a bit hypocritical, but yeah. Going on in Mozambique, another example is the Rovuma methane extraction plant that you might have heard of. It's a very, very big project that attracted, of course, the attention of MDBs and other players in the financial world. And yeah, the Rovuma methane field has been recently discovered, and companies like Total Energies, Eni, or China National Petroleum Corporation started investing and developing facilities in the north of Mozambique, in the Cabo Delgado province. And the DFC has provided a dark loan to Exxon's subsidiary in the country. And that happened in 2023, which is absurd, sounds absurd to me, because 2023 is financing oil and gas extraction is against all better practices that we can imagine. And the DFC, the US Development Finance Corporation, is a major financer of oil and gas in the Africa region, not only in Mozambique. Unfortunately, they financed other oil and gas extraction and trade infrastructure pipelines elsewhere, along with the AFC, and again involving global north companies. When we were working on this collection of data, I watched this video from Al Jazeera that you can see in the slide, and I found it very interesting. And yeah, I think it shows well what the impacts can be on the ground, although I'm sure many of you are already aware of that, but if you want, you can explore more with watching that video. I can share the presentation later. And yeah, as I was saying before, we also noticed, luckily, better practices in the sector. So some MDBs, some multilateral development banks financed small-scale systems that were aiming to foster access to energy. That is still an issue in the African continent that must be readily addressed by developers. And so such kind of investments, these are the investments that we would like to see more. We would like to promote more. Of course, then it depends on how they are implemented, whether communities are consulted. There are a lot of other issues connected to that, but financing small scale mesh grids, mini grids, that's some potential better practices. And if this is possible, I don't understand why the DFC should still finance methane extraction mostly. Here you can see a few examples from the Green Climate Fund or from the FMO, the Dutch Development Financial Institution, and from the World Banks. Maybe you are aware of this big multi-phase and multi-country program that they launched called ASCEND, and ASCEND, Accelerating Sustainable and Clean Energy Access Transformation. And that's something that could be useful for our Voxy as well. That was it for me, and I welcome any questions you may have. I think at the end of the other presentations, we will have a question and answer time. So thank you for your attention. And
thank you so
back to you, John. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Alejandro, from IAP, and thank you so much everyone who has joined the presentation. Alejandro has spoken to everything, the tracker to the projects that are being tracked, the countries where these projects are going, the monies that are being sent, the trends. He has provided the trends and the actors. He has provided examples in Egypt and Mozambique, and he has also shown the best practices. Thank you, Alejandro, for that. I request anyone who has a question to please put it in the chat box, and Alejandro will be following through the chat box. We are also going to be time so that we can have responses to these questions that are going on so much. We felt that we should also share experiences of partners who have worked in this area of energy and and we felt that we
Yeah, I'm sorry, but we don't hear you.
Yeah, I'm sorry, there is an inconvenience on John's side. Maybe there is a little bit of.
CHR is a partner for Malawi who will be sharing on the experience with Salima and share your experience in 10 minutes. So
So I'm so sorry for the inconvenience. So sorry for the inconvenience. John's connection is breaking. Now I'm taking over. My name is Angita, and I'm IIP Communication Coordinator. So now we can move on to the second panelist. It will be Miss Lydia Mkandawire. I'm sorry if I pronounce your last name wrongly. She is from CHRR Malawi, since she has been working on community-led response with community affected by Salima Solar Power Plant project in Malawi. So now over to you, Ms. Lydia, to tell us more about community-led response work on energy project in Malawi.
Thank you, Angie, and you pronounced my name very well. Let me just share my screen. Okay, I think my screen is visible. So, good afternoon, everyone. My name is Lydia Mkandawire from Center for Human Rights and Rehabilitation, a human rights organization based in Malawi. So I will be taking you through a presentation this afternoon of the work that we have done on development projects, particularly the Salima Solar project, where we had utilized a community-led response in terms of dealing with community concerns on the Salima Solar project. So first of all, our organization is called Center for Human Rights and Rehabilitation, in short, CHRR. Our organization is based here in Malawi, and we implement various projects in 15 districts across the country. And our vision is of a vibrant Malawian culture that embraces the values of democracy, human rights, and rule of law. Basically, our work is around ensuring that rural and urban communities are aware of their rights and they also exercise their rights. The work that we do is mainly centered around 5 main approaches, which is public awareness and community empowerment, civic and human rights education, training and research, advocacy and networking, and also capacity building. Our advocacy work around development projects is centered in 3 phases, 3 levels. The first level is at community level. So when conducting our work, we want to ensure that communities that are affected by development projects have access to information on the different projects that are happening within their communities. And we also want to ensure that communities have access to the relevant laws, national, regional, international laws and policies that they can leverage on, and also ensure that community concerns are heard and addressed by the different stakeholders, be it the government, the companies implementing the projects, or the project financiers. At national level, we also work towards identifying existing gaps within the national laws and policies and how they're impacting communities affected by development projects. Just recently, we had conducted a review of the land and resettlement laws and policies and identifying the gaps that hinder communities from participating in development projects, and also identifying leverage points that the communities can use when development projects are happening in their communities. And at regional and international level, we also work towards ensuring that project financiers are aware of the negative impacts that communities are faced by development projects. We understand that any project that is coming in, a development project that is coming in, could have positive and negative impacts. And we want to try as much as possible to minimize those negative impacts. And we ensure that these impacts are known by the project financiers so that they work towards addressing these impacts. In terms of the work that we have done under the Salima Solar project, CHR collaborated with IAP and both ends to conduct a community-led research on the Salima Solar project. So this project approximately affected around 200 community members. These were landowners, and the land that was bought by the company was around 168 hectares. And the major issues that came out from the research were as follows. There was inadequate project information and inadequate community consultation, where community members did not have enough information about the project and also were not adequately consulted with regards to the land acquisition process. There was also an issue of the manipulation, intimidation, and coercion during the land acquisition process, where communities felt like they were forced to give up their land and they did not have the negotiation power in terms of bargaining the price of the land and also in terms of measuring their pieces of land. Another issue that came out was lack of information on the grievance redress mechanism. So another thing to note was that for the Salima Solar project, the land that was acquired for this project was acquired in 2 phases. And the first phase did not have any grievance redress committee to look into the issues that communities had. So communities did not know about having where to lodge their complaints and also how they can lodge their complaints. The grievance redress committee was later on formed in the second phase, but however, the committees were also not trained in terms of how they can address community issues. Another issue was economic displacement and loss of livelihoods, because most of the land that was acquired was farmland that communities were using. And some of the community members that we had interviewed had mentioned that the land that they had acquired after giving up the land that they had was not as fertile as the land that they had before. And also considering that they had received cash compensation and they were not able to also find land that was equivalent to the cash that they had received. Another issue was health hazards and environmental pollution. So when the land was acquired, they had to clear the land and there was too much dust coming out of the area, and there were no mitigation measures in terms of controlling the pollution, and the communities were heavily affected by this. Another issue that came out was discriminatory and unequal employment conditions, where women had mentioned that they were not being employed at the project site, and also in terms of people that had issues with regards to their employment, there were no concrete mitigation measures in terms of dealing with employment issues. And another issue that came out was on gender-based violence and sexual exploitation, where young girls were being defiled by people that worked at the project site. And the last issue that came out was unfulfilled project benefits to the affected communities, where community members were promised by the implementing agency that they would have benefits of electricity, they would have access to employment, but most of these benefits were not fulfilled. So we have been working on the Salima Solar project since 2019 when we had conducted the research. So I'll just take you through the different work that we have done over the years. So in 2020, after we had conducted the research, compiled the different concerns that communities had, we had shared the research with the project financiers, which is FMO and MEGA, and also the implementing company, which is JCM Power. So when we had shared this information with the project financiers and the implementing company, there was not much response in terms of trying to address the issues that communities had. So the approach that we had used was to build capacity of the communities themselves so that they're able to raise these issues by themselves. So first of all, we had formulated accountability clubs. These are community members that were willing to work as volunteers in terms of compiling the cases that communities had with regards to the project. And we also supported advocating for access to information, project information, because when we had conducted the research, people did not have information about the project in terms of how long the project is going to be there, the different initiatives that are going to be conducted. People did not have such information. And I had also mentioned that there was also an issue of gender-based violence that came out. We had later on realized that the company did not have a gender specialist by the time that we were conducting the research. So after we had presented the research to them, we also managed to influence hiring of a gender-based violence specialist. And this specialist had also developed a GBV action plan, which we had also contributed to. We had analyzed the plan and also provide our input in the GBV action plan. And then, like I had mentioned, that we had taken the approach for the communities to raise the concerns themselves. We had presented the issues to the financiers and the company, but they were not taken seriously. So we also managed to build capacity of communities so they're able to write a letter to the project financiers themselves to ensure that these concerns are heard by the different financiers. So when we had presented this letter to the financiers, now in 2021, we were having meetings with the project financiers, but also the company. And we managed to lobby for an independent facilitated dialogue process where there would be an independent facilitator coming in and taking on the issues that JCM Power has to present, and also the communities. So this is to say that communities should present the issues themselves to an independent facilitator so that the issues should be resolved. And one of the milestones that we had achieved in 2022 was that with the issue of communities being promised benefits from the project, we had managed to lobby for JCM Power and the Salima District Council, which is the government, a government entity, to develop a memorandum of understanding between the company and the communities on corporate social responsibility. So the community had now the power to input into what they want in terms of corporate social responsibility for their community. And as we speak, JCM Power has been able to build schools in the community, also give the community access to clean water clean water in the communities, and also providing bursaries for young girls. And in 2022, continuing with our advocacy, we had continued to monitor the Salima Solar project in terms of the livelihood restoration program. So I had mentioned that there was a land acquisition process that happened, and after the land acquisition happened, communities were given their compensation, but after that, there was also a livelihood restoration program which was part of the compensation for the communities. So we had closely monitored the livelihood restoration program to ensure that this program is implemented effectively and also it benefits the communities. So we lobbied for the committees that were formed then, the Livelihood Restoration Committee and the Grievance Redress Committee, to be trained so that they know how to conduct their work. And also they are able to monitor the different initiatives that are happening within the community. So that is the work that we did in 2022. And then in 2023, we also focused on the land acquisition issue. Just to note that it has not been easy in terms of resolving the issues that communities had. According to the company, the land acquisition process did not have any problems. And also according to the Ministry of Lands, the land acquisition process went on well and everybody received their compensations. But then what we had realized is that the communities have stated that this process was unfair because they did not have any bargaining power and they did not have anywhere that they could complain. So it's an issue that we have been taking on since 2019, but then just recently in 2023, that is when the company was now more open in terms of trying to resolve this issue. So we had also trained the project affected persons in terms of their rights and also how to seek redress and the obligations that the government has in terms of resolving the issues that they had with regards to the involuntary resettlement. So finally, in terms of the lessons that we have learned over the years, first of all, it's community involvement. which is key because the project affected persons are the primary beneficiaries, and they need to understand, we need to understand the communities and also identify the gaps and areas of capacity building for the communities so that we're able to meet the community's needs. And also another issue that we had learned is on power dynamics that exist within the communities, that we had later on realized that the different dynamics within the community where the chiefs hold more power and influence what happens in the community had also affected this development project where people had to give up their land when they did not want to because the chiefs were putting in a word that this has to happen and the government can take your land without giving in any compensation. So another approach that we had used was to have separate dialogues with community members from the chiefs so that we get more insight in terms of what actually happened. And also another issue is the power of dialogue. We had been engaging the project financiers and the company over the years, trying to put in our, trying to state the community concerns and how best they can be able to resolve the issues. And lastly is focused engagement between the project financiers and with the project financiers and the implementing agency, where we ensured that we do not lose our focus in terms of trying to ensure that the community concerns are heard. Because I had mentioned about an independent facilitated dialogue that took place where the project financiers had a different expectation from what we had, which also led to a further delayed process in terms of responding to the issues. But then later on, we had now put in more effort in terms of trying to be specific in terms of what the community wants in terms of addressing the different concerns that the communities had. So thank you very much for listening. That is what I had to share. If there'll be any questions, I'll be able to respond to them at the end. Thank you.
Thank you, Lydia, for the presentation, and thank you for the very elaborate taking us through the work of CHRR with the Salima Solar Project. The questions are coming in. If you look at the question and answer session, there's a section up there where you can ask your questions and the presenters will be answering your questions. Lydia, there's already a question for you to answer up there. So please keep the questions coming and we'll be glad to interact. We also have a presentation, the last presentation from Fatoumata from LSD. If Fatoumata is going to be presenting in French, so please go down to the box and you'll open up the interpretation section and you can switch on to English for those who do not hear or know French. So Fatoumata, please welcome and let's have your presentation.
Merci beaucoup, John. J'espère que vous voyez tous très bien l'écran. Je vais essayer d'aller vite. Mes collègues m'ont laissé peu de temps. Donc, notre organisation, Lumière Synergie pour le développement, est basée au Sénégal. Nous travaillons spécifiquement à faire le suivi des projets d'infrastructures financés par la Banque africaine de développement, un peu partout en Afrique. Nous faisons partie de plusieurs coalitions aussi au niveau international qui travaillent sur les institutions financières internationales. Donc, je vais revenir un peu sur les projets énergétiques du Sénégal. Allons tout droit au contexte. Le déficit énergétique en Afrique, surtout en ce qui concerne l'électrification, je pense que on connaît tous les chiffres, c'est près de 600 millions d'Africains qui n'ont pas accès à l'électricité et aux méthodes de cuisson fortes. Donc, le Sénégal, dans ce cadre-là, n'est pas aussi en reste, même si nous avons fait beaucoup de progrès en ce qui concerne l'électrification. C'est vrai que le taux reste peu satisfaisant au niveau rural, surtout dans le milieu rural, où on peut noter qu'il existe un véritable gap. Seulement 4138 localités rurales sont électrifiées sur un total de 21 170. Des données disponibles sur le site du gouvernement sénégalais. Et en ce qui concerne le gap aussi qui existe entre le métropole et les zones rurales est très visible. Déjà, la capitale au Sénégal, Dakar, est électrifiée à 98%. Donc, quand les régions du Sénégal oriental, de Kédougou et Kolda, additionnent 12% et 17%. Donc, on peut déjà là voir le gap qui existe entre les deux extrémités au niveau du Sénégal. Donc, dans notre pays, le sous-secteur de l'électricité est structuré autour de 3 activités majeures: la production, le transport, la distribution et la vente. Donc, c'est sur ces 3 activités majeures que travaillent les compagnies au niveau du Sénégal. En ce qui concerne l'électrification, c'est la Sénélec, la société sénégalaise d'électricité qui en a la charge. Et il y a une certaine mutation qui est en train d'être faite dans le secteur énergétique au niveau du Sénégal, où on utilisait principalement le fuel et le gaz venant de l'extérieur, bien sûr, pour gérer le secteur de l'électricité. Il y a le charbon qui s'est ajouté. Et il y a aussi de nouveaux projets renouvelables, pas assez selon les chiffres que nous avons. On va y arriver. Et il y a aussi le solaire et l'éolienne qui sont en train d'être utilisés. Et ça répond à la politique de mix énergétique qu'a développé le gouvernement du Sénégal. Un mix énergétique qui va de plus en plus se faire ressentir dans la politique énergétique du pays. Et cela est dû à la découverte du pétrole et du gaz dans notre pays. Donc, si on revient spécifiquement dans le secteur de l'énergie, qui comprend pas seulement l'électrification, mais tout autre usage de l'énergie en général, on peut noter qu'il y a une certaine disparité dans l'usage des énergies disponibles, que pour le moment, la plupart sont exportées, sont importées plutôt. Il y a la biomasse traditionnelle qui représente encore la moitié de l'énergie primaire au Sénégal, 52%. L'énergie fossile près de 46% et le restant provient entre autres des sources d'énergie renouvelable, seulement 1%. Quand on vient spécifiquement dans la production d'électricité, elle est basée aujourd'hui à 70% sur le fioul lourd et le diesel, et 8% sur le charbon, 22% sur l'hydroélectricité et le solaire. Ça, c'est spécifiquement dans le domaine de l'électricité au Sénégal. Et dans le cadre de suivi des projets que nous faisons, je rappelle, c'est des projets financés par la Banque africaine de développement que nous ciblons, parce que nous avons une certaine expérience dans le monitoring de ces projets-là. Il y a en premier lieu la centrale à charbon de Sendou, sur lequel nous travaillons depuis plus d'une dizaine d'années maintenant. Donc, une centrale qui est située à environ 35 km au sud-est de la capitale Dakar. Donc, une centrale qui est à proximité des villages traditionnels, un village de pêcheurs. Donc, le financement du projet qui a été fait par la Banque africaine de développement, mais aussi la Banque ouest africaine de développement, le FMO et la CBAO. Donc, en 2016, nous avons eu à accompagner les communautés, surtout les femmes transformatrices de poissons de la localité, à déposer une plainte au niveau du mécanisme indépendant de recours de la Banque africaine de développement et du FMO. Une plainte qui est toujours en cours. Et donc, la résolution des différentes griefs, problèmes présentés au niveau du mécanisme sont toujours en cours. Et les impacts climatiques de ce projet-là sont vraiment énormes. Si on prend en compte que c'est un projet qui est implanté à côté de la mer où des communautés de pêcheurs vivent depuis 3 générations, où les femmes pratiquent la transformation de produits halieutiques. Et quand on tient en compte les émissions nettes de gaz à effet de serre que la centrale à charbon a enregistré, c'était évalué à 964 554 tonnes d'équivalent CO2. Cela représente en fait 27% des émissions totales de gaz à effet de serre du Sénégal en 95. De 95 à aujourd'hui, il y a une augmentation nette qui a été notée. Donc, c'est pour cette raison que lorsque les communautés ont eu le choix de faire soit la médiation avec la compagnie ou la vérification de conformité, les communautés ont choisi de faire la vérification de conformité pour mettre en avant les impacts au niveau environnemental que ce projet a eu. Et il y a un deuxième projet que je voulais aussi partager avec vous, c'est celle de la centrale thermique de Malokunda, qui est plus récente. Et dans ce cadre aussi, nous avons eu à accompagner les communautés de la zone à déposer une plainte au niveau du mécanisme indépendant de recours de la Banque africaine de développement, qui est aussi un des bailleurs du projet. Et ce que nous avons surtout noté avec ce projet-là, c'est les financements qui vont au niveau du secteur privé, c'est-à-dire des privés qui viennent implanter des projets énergétiques à combustible fossile au niveau des localités, sans vraiment tenir en compte des impacts que cela peut avoir sur les communautés. C'est-à-dire que dès le départ, l'implantation du projet peut être poussée sur le fait que les communautés ne sont pas impliquées, des études d'impact environnemental et social sont aussi faussées. Donc, sur les deux projets-là, c'est ce que nous avons à démontrer. C'est-à-dire que plus on implante de projets à combustible fossile sans tenir compte de l'impact que cela peut avoir sur la vie des communautés, cela peut se retourner après contre les bailleurs de ces projets-là, malgré les politiques énergétiques qu'ils mettent en place, surtout en ce qui concerne la transition énergétique et tous les engagements qu'ils ont pris, surtout pour la Banque africaine de développement depuis l'accord de Paris. On se rend compte que ce n'est pas respecté ou ce n'est pas mis en œuvre de la meilleure des manières au niveau de nos pays, et le Sénégal n'est pas en reste. Et si on revient sur le rapport que nous avons publié avec l'IAC, c'est vrai que c'est la tendance qui revient. On voit beaucoup d'institutions financières internationales qui continuent à financer des projets d'énergie fossile en Afrique ou dans les pays du Sud de façon très, très globale. Donc, il y a des chiffres, je ne vais pas m'attarder sur ça, vous aurez peut-être à exploiter le document pour pouvoir en tirer des chiffres. Et pour le Sénégal, comme j'ai dit, nous sommes vraiment à l'aube de l'exploitation de nos premiers barils de pétrole au niveau du champ pétrolier de Sangoma et du gaz qui va être aussi exploité dans le nord du pays. Et l'État du Sénégal, dans ce cadre-là, a développé la politique du gaz pour l'initiative gaz pour moi, qui consiste à régler le problème de l'accès à l'énergie au niveau national en se basant sur nos ressources en gaz et en pétrole. Donc, c'est une initiative aussi qui est appuyée par la DST, qui a aussi financé à hauteur de 71 millions de dollars quand même l'agrandissement d'une centrale thermique qui fonctionne au fioul lourd et une option de conversion au gaz naturel au Cap des Biches. C'est à environ 27 km de Dakar. Donc, c'est allant sur la même lignée et partageant la vision de l'État du Sénégal que les institutions financières internationales vont venir appuyer ces projets-là. Et cela ne profite pas aux initiatives qui mettent en valeur et qui mettent en avant les énergies renouvelables. Si on tient en compte aussi les richesses d'énergie renouvelable dont regorge le Sénégal et l'Afrique en général, cela retarde vraiment le soutien à la transition énergétique juste et équitable sur lequel nous voulons travailler. Donc, c'est des solutions pour nous qui sont toujours mises en avant en déclarant que le gaz est une énergie de transition, parce que cela retarde véritablement le véritable travail qui doit être fait sur les énergies renouvelables. Actuellement aussi, il y a le Sénégal qui bénéficie de l'initiative du partenariat pour une transition énergétique juste avec des pays européens qui vont financer ce partenariat-là. Et dans sa déclaration commune, le Sénégal assure vouloir continuer à renforcer le déploiement des énergies renouvelables dans son mix énergétique. Et cela dans le cadre de son plan intégré à moindre coût pour l'électricité, c'est-à-dire vraiment rendre accessible et moins cher l'électricité au niveau du pays, et une baisse des émissions dans le secteur. Mais comme j'ai dit, il y a le fait d'investir plus sur le gaz et le pétrole qui va retarder cette transition énergétique juste et équitable dont on se vante au niveau du pays actuellement. Donc, c'est sur ce point-là qu'actuellement notre organisation est en train de travailler avec des organisations partenaires. Et il est important de noter que pour pouvoir faire ce travail-là dans le secteur, il faut qu'on ait aussi un partenariat avec d'autres organisations au niveau régional et international. Donc, je vais m'arrêter là. Je ne permets pas d'entrer dans les détails, mais si on a des questions, je pense qu'on peut prendre le temps d'y répondre. Merci pour votre attention.
Thank you so much, Fatoumata, for the presentation. Thank you, Alejandro, and thank you, Lydia. At this point, we have an opportunity to ask questions, to make our comments. And I know that we have questions in the chat box. So our presenters, please look into the chat box and answer to these questions. I would like also to share with you the link to the Energy Finance Tracker report and also that we are talking about here. And I also would like to let you know that we will be sharing all the presentations that have been done here through the emails that you used to register. I've shared the Energy Tracker report, the link. Please look at it in the chat box. I would ask Lydia. I can see, Lydia, you have a couple of questions that have been put before you. If you could open up to us to respond to some of these questions. Fatoumata, you also have some questions that have been put before you. So please, Lydia, go ahead.
Okay, thank you very much, John. And thank you to all those that have put in questions. So I'll start with the first question that is asking, how did CHR deal with inadequate project information and unsatisfactory community engagement, bearing in mind community dynamics? Okay, so what we did as CHR was to compile the concerns that communities had and present them to the financiers and also the implementing company. But apart from that, we had also presented these issues to other international platforms, such as the Tuesday group, whereas we have different CSOs and also other financiers that participate or attend such meetings in terms of listening to what CSOs have to say. So that push at international level and also here at national level in terms of presenting the issues had also led to the company now being more open in terms of sharing information and also more open in terms of community engagement. And with regards to the community dynamics, we had also utilized the accountability clubs that we had developed. Those were responsible for also having in like different side meetings within the community trying to get concerns from different people, and also the trainings that we had conducted at community level, making people know what are their rights, how their rights were violated during the land acquisition process. So this had helped in terms of ensuring that there's now strong engagement between the company and the communities, and also the companies sharing in information. And then the other question is speaking into as for recommendations presented to MDBs on safeguards and regulations that should be considered to protect rights of communities impacted by large-scale solar projects that lead to land grabbing. Okay, yeah, so in our report, we had also shared in some recommendations where we would like for the financiers to also look into how the companies are adhering to the different compliance in terms of the international performance standards. How are they complying to international performance standards, and also how are they safeguarding the community? So it's about the funders, project financiers, having clear performance indicators to say we have funded this company, how best are they utilizing the resources? Are they not infringing on people's rights? Are they not violating the international performance standards? So it's a matter of them having clear indicators to say this is how we're going to monitor how the company is going to utilize the resources that we have given them, which should not be harmful to communities. And I think the last question is what is MIGA's role in the Salima project? Was it harmful or helpful? Because the person also understands that MIGA also plays some other roles apart from financing. So specifically for the Salima solar project, MIGA has the role of MIGA was to just finance the project, where they had put in around 58 million US dollars. So it was about financing the project. And also they were open in terms of the independent facilitated dialogue, in terms of responding to the issues that communities had through the independent facilitated dialogue. Yeah, I think those were the questions that were addressed to me. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Lydia, for responding to those questions.
On n'entend pas, dear John. John, sorry, don't hear you.
Hello, Fatoumata. Question.
Bon, je n'entends pas John non plus. Je vais essayer de répondre à la question que j'ai dans le chat. C'est à savoir s'il y a eu des conséquences du projet de l'Afrique sur la santé des femmes. Sur le plan de la reproduction, il n'y a pas eu de problème noté. Mais c'est vrai que sur la santé en général, on a eu à faire une étude avec des médecins au niveau du site où les femmes transformatrices font leur travail et où elles cohabitent avec la centrale à charbon. Et ce qui en est ressorti, c'est qu'il y a eu des impacts sur la santé en général, des problèmes respiratoires, des problèmes... John, vous voulez dire quelque chose? Je peux continuer. OK. Donc, je disais que ces résultats-là qu'on a obtenus ont été rajoutés au rapport que nous avons produit, qui s'intitulait « Les femmes s'opposent à la grande production de charbon au Sénégal ». Donc, on a fait avec notre partenaire Africa Alliance, qui sont basés en Afrique du Sud. Et ce rapport-là a joué un rôle aussi très important sur la connaissance des personnes envoyées par la Banque africaine de développement pour faire la vérification de conformité du projet. Donc, c'est un projet actuellement qui est arrêté, qu'on a réussi quand même à stopper. Le temps que des solutions soient trouvées sur les conditions de travail et de vie des communautés qui vivent aux alentours. Donc, c'est le résultat que nous avons eu. Et grâce aussi au plaidoyer que nous avons fait, la Banque africaine de développement s'est engagée à se retirer totalement du financement de nouveaux projets à charbon en Afrique. Ce qui ne suffit pas, nous allons essayer de faire en sorte que ce soit ratifié en politique pour que aussi les projets en cours soient revus et s'il le faut, qu'ils soient aussi arrêtés. Donc, c'est ça la prochaine étape de notre travail. Merci.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Fatoumata. Alejandro, if you could use the minute to respond to the question regarding concealing information, and then we will be able to close this up. Please, Alejandro.
Yes, thank you, John. I just answered to Jackson Shah. Thank you for the question, Jackson. Yeah, to use the tracker, you can see the instructions at the end of the report. But in any case, you can just select the country of your interest in the main map. And then at the bottom of the page, you will see the list of projects in that country. If you double click on the project, then you can choose to be redirected to the early warning system page, where you can see more information about projects, including the involvement of private companies. And yeah, I hope that answers the question, but I can also follow up by email or if I hope that clarified the doubt. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Alejandro. Thank you so much, Lydia from CHHR, Alejandro from IAP, and Fatoumata from LSD. Thank you so much for the presentations. We thank so much everyone who has joined in this webinar for creating time. This webinar has been organized by IAP and our partners, the African Coalition for Corporate Accountability. And we are glad that we have had this discussion. The link to the Energy Finance Tracker has been shared, and please follow up through the link to get more information on this. Please reach out to also for more information. Thank you so much to the participants, to the panelists, and have a great day.
Thank you, John. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.